Hey there, listeners. Corey from the Being Boss team here. I have a quick question for you. Do you want to get more out of what we do here at Being Boss? Sure, you like this podcast, but did you know that Emily's recording monthly episodes of Making a Business, the show that follows along as she builds her other business, Almanac Supply Co. These episodes are available exclusively to members of the Being Boss Clubhouse, along with business workshops, industry-specific virtual meetups for designers and product bosses, and more. Learn more and sign up for the Being Boss Clubhouse at beingboss.club/community.
Welcome to Being Boss, a podcast for creatives, business owners, and entrepreneurs who want to take control of their work and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Emily Thompson, and in this episode, I'm joined by author Carrie Severson to talk about what it is to feel enough, redefining success, and recovering from burnout. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference on the show notes at www.beingboss.club. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and share us with a friend. Want to build a more streamlined business, but want to do it in quick spurts of actionable info? Then you've got to check out I Digress, a show hosted by Troy Sandage, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. With shows under 30 minutes, I Digress helps eliminate complexity, complications, and confusion in your business with frameworks and strategies to achieve scalable and sustainable success, and does so with episodes like how to attract your ideal customer in an oversaturated market, and hourly rates versus project pricing, charge for value for results instead of time. Learn more and listen to I Digress wherever you get your podcasts. Carrie Severson is the author of Unapologetically Enough, Reshaping Success and Self-Love. And she's the boss behind the Unapologetic Voice House, a hybrid book publishing business launched in 2019. Carrie, welcome to Being Boss.
Hi, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to have you. I always am thrilled when an OG boss, you were just mentioning how you did a blog post for us back in 2016, how, an old school boss sort of circles back around and has done something really cool. So congrats on the thing we're going to talk about today.
Thanks.
But I also just want to hear your story with maybe a highlight on what you were doing in 2016 and what you've been doing since then. So open us up with telling us your story. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, so in 2016, first of all, I'm a professional writer. I am a hybrid publisher. I'm an entrepreneur. In 2016, I had just sort of come out of the darkness of burnout. And my first entrepreneurship experience was a nonprofit I launched in 2011. It caught on fire. I took off running at
Wait, literally or like figuratively?
Figuratively, sorry.
Okay.
It was a bullying solutions organization for young girls in the peak of girl on girl bullying.
Yeah.
So I took off running at a super fast pace, couldn't keep up with the demand and burned out. And when I went back to my roots of storytelling to sort of recover from burnout, and like most magical things do happen in my life, I happened to be at a party in Santa Monica, met this woman. She's like, so tell me what you do. And I'm like, well, I'm actually a writer. I'm recovering from burnout. And she was with Huffington Post at the time. And she's like, oh my gosh, you have to write about burnout. So in 2016, I was actually writing about my burnout experience and helping women around the world pull their stories out of their closets and find platforms to get published. So I had a little storytelling business that I grew, and that's what I was doing. I was helping women around the world tell their stories and get published doing it. So, and
Lovely.
That led to me finding the guts to put a book together. And I started pitching agents, consistently being compared to really big writers with really big platforms. And because I didn't have those things or wasn't, comparable, I was always being passed up. So how I landed here today, I actually in 2019 decided to create my own publishing business called the Unapologetic Voice House. And that's what I do. I actually publish other people's work, and decided this is the year we're going to tell my story. So that's where I'm at. We're about to publish my book.
Yeah, you are. Congratulations. I think
Thanks.
this
It's
is so
exciting.
interesting because, being burned out, I guess 2014, 2015,
Mhm.
sounds about the time that was happening. I mean, it's kind of before burnout was cool.
Yeah.
Not that
Yeah.
it's cool, but it's such a buzzword right now. I mean, over the course of the past 2 years in particular, everyone has sort of hit their wall, right? Of like, I have no more energy for this. I need to take care of myself. It is dark and scary. So you were experiencing this years ago, and you mentioned magic a minute ago. I think there's a bit of magic in that. It happened 7-8 years ago, and you've been putting this book together, and it's coming out now when the world is probably most ready to receive such a book. Whereas if this had come out in 2018, 2019, they'd burn out. Like, who's this? Like, what is this about? But now everyone's like scrambling to figure out burnout because everyone's feeling it.
Yep. Yeah. It was crazy. I actually woke up on my 35th birthday, and when you have an intuition and you're in tune with your intuition, you'll get like random messages. And I woke up on my 35th birthday, and the first thing I heard was burnout. And like, I got that in my soul, like that word flashed across my face. And I'm like, what is this? What does that mean? And I turned on my phone and typed in burnout in, the search engine, and all of these things just flashed before me. And I was like, I can recognize all of that. I know exactly what that feels like, being emotionally drained, being psychologically, just put out and feeling energetically fried. I know exactly what that feels like. And so that was this term. I was like, I think this is what I'm experiencing. And I went into hiding. I was running a nonprofit at the time, and I put all of my responsibilities onto the board, and I was like, I need to heal. And I took 8 weeks, and I sat I went back home to where I grew up, was grateful for some support financially, and sat in the deck of my childhood home and just waited to like feel better. And that didn't work. You just can't sit and wait for stuff to change. Right. So I would wait to hear something or feel something, and I would write it out. I went through a process of like feeling an emotion, writing out why I felt that, and just kept on digging and digging and digging and writing it all out until the point where it was like, I have to find some boundaries. I have to make an effort to feel happy. I have to change this cycle, and slowly started to pull myself out of the rat race of being in the center of everything and doing everything myself, to pushing responsibilities out, to literally flipping the way the nonprofit was doing business. I mean, it took effort to move out of that space. It was the feeling of burnout is like you're being stabbed. Like, like my energy was just like constantly frayed and always on alert. My shoulders were up in my ears. My back was always tense. I was like 50 pounds heavier, and I just could not catch a breath. I could not relax. I could not find my grounding, my like center, my core. It was awful. So I have total sympathy for people that are experiencing it now, because I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah. And you even hit on something here, because I don't know how connected you've stayed to being boss over the past couple of years, but Kathleen and I went through about an 18-month situation of burnout as well. Very deep and dark, very difficult. All the things that you're saying totally resonate with. And one of the things that you said there brought something up for me that I hadn't quite pieced together, but is something that I think is really important for pointing out, of like getting yourself through burnout. Because I too found myself just like sitting there and waiting. And for me, I was waiting for the word to fly across my mind. I was waiting for that like divine inspiration to be like, here is the solution to your problem.
Totally.
Right. And it never really happened that way. Well, actually, it's a lie. It finally did happen that way, but only after I started doing some hardcore work
Yep.
around. This is the thing that really just the light bulb that came on for me is this idea that you do have to dismantle
Yes.
so many things around how you are currently showing up and doing your work and living and conversing with people and holding space for your relationships and all of these things. And I remember for me in particular, one of the things that came up for me during burnout was like insane negative self-talk in a way that I have never personally experienced until I was like in the depths of burnout. And I had to do some hardcore work of like checking myself consistently and dismantling those sorts of processes and the spiraling that happens there. And then it happens through obviously doing all kinds of things outwardly as well. But there is a certain amount of, a large certain amount of work that does have to be done to fix so many things in your life to better support you for getting out of burnout and putting yourself in a place where you're not just going to fall right back into it.
Yep. For me, it was, so the concept of enough was really big, especially in the nonprofit world. You're constantly fighting for dollars. A lot of other people are fighting for. You're constantly having to prove yourself. And for me, I was always running, especially being in that section of girl on girl bullying when the whole world was talking about it. I went from being this one person shop to literally talking to like producers of the Ellen show. I was in Glamour. I was on USA Network. It was huge. It really did grow fast. And I was always writing down in my journal, it's never enough. It's never enough. I don't have enough. And enough was a negative connotation for me. And so my concept of success was related 100% related to money and related to productivity and related to external validation. And those three things were the big ones for me to pull apart and piece together and reshape and redefine. And that took a while. That really did. It wasn't like an easy thing because I was so programmed to this. Plus I was like the face of the organization. I'm on TV, I'm on stage. But yeah, that when I started to reshift all of these patterns, things started to really open up for me and change. And I finally found like the guts to like start writing about it. So in I want to say I started writing for the Huffington Post for in 2015 maybe. And that was my first piece. I came out and I was like, I'm a recovered burnout. Even though the concept of recovered, excuse me, is an ongoing thing. I don't think it's so easy to fall back into that habit. I honestly feel like it's a recovering process of me being consistently checking myself, making sure that I'm defining success on my own terms. I'm not letting anyone else's definition of being enough, feeling enough, get in my way. I'm holding strong boundaries. This is something I have to do like daily. So, but yeah, it's rough. It's hard. I have so much, my heart hurts so badly for women specifically for women who don't feel successful, are constantly questioning if they're doing enough. Yeah, it's hard on these entrepreneur being boss streets, right?
Indeed. You have to have strong boundaries and you have to, all the things you just said, you have to know what your version of success is and not give a rat's ass about anyone else's. Yeah. And like all of these things that you're saying are totally true. I want to go back to this enoughness because you just shared what it used to mean to you and how that was, bad news for you moving forward. But one of the things that you did through writing this book is you were able to redefine to yourself what enough means. Yeah. So I would love to hear from you. What does being unapologetically enough mean to you now?
Right. It's so funny. So when I wrote Unapologetically Enough, it wasn't first called Unapologetically Enough. There were all these other titles for it. And I was working with my editor and I'm like, it's not the right title. It's not the right title. And so my editor was the one that came back and she's like, Carrie, this entire book is about you making sure that you're not comparing or not looking at yourself as enough from outside circumstances. You are who you are. I am who I am. as I am right now, I am unapologetically enough in this form, in this moment, because of everything I've done previously to move me into this space, of all the work I've done to reshape and redefine success and self-love. I am unapologetically enough as I am right now with the effort I have put into today. This is who I am. So for me, it was this idea that I don't have to be approved by you. I don't have to meet your expectations. I don't have to do those things. I don't have to show up in the way you see I have to show up. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to be everything I can for me first and fill up me first. And that's unapologetically enough for me. And so it really was this idea of pulling all these cords I had and pulling them back.
We talk about, whenever I first read the piece about how it is that you are redefining enough for yourself and how that was such a trigger word, it's something that I can relate to a lot. But then I also see myself in sort of other places. Oftentimes in my coaching, I'll get bosses to define for themselves, like, what is their enough number in their business? So even using that word to get people to redefine or just to define sort of things in their business that are so imperative to lock in on so that you know what it is that you're working on. So it's really funny that you can hold these like dual meanings of a word and dual sort of feelings for a word. But I would imagine that that's a word that a lot of people, once you hear it and start thinking about your own experience with it, has a lot of baggage for everyone.
It does. For me, it was in my journey. This is one of the things I did to recover from burnout. And I write about this. I'm a writer, so I'm a professional writer. I use my words. So I went back to my journals and I started highlighting. I noticed all these words that were coming up a lot. Enough was one of the words. And I started highlighting it. And it was always related to a negative connotation. And so I was like, I'm not going to use the word enough anymore. So I reframed my language. I welcome
So you wrote a whole book called Unapologetically
Enough, right? So this is like 8 years ago. But I didn't do the work to actually heal it. I just put a Band-Aid over it. And I was like, I'm not going to use this word again. So when my editor was like, your book is called Unapologetically Enough, I had a moment. I was like, F you, it is. And I like shut my computer down and I like turned my phone off and I curled up on the couch. And I had like a total meltdown. And then I took a breath and I was like, okay, let's look at this. She's an incredibly smart woman. She's done a ton of work. She knows what she's talking about. Why is she saying this? So I actually turned to my coach and I was like, my editor wants me to call the book Unapologetically Enough. And my coach sends me back the angel sign, the angel emoji. And I was like, what the hell does this mean? And she's like, I want you to do research, really look at the word enough. And when I did, the first thing that popped up that my eyes went to was abundant, the word abundant. So the actual concept of enough is to meet the needs, to be sufficient. So even in that, it doesn't mean lack, but we look at it as lack because it's never, quote, enough. But when you look at the synonym of enough, words like abundant are here. I mean, like, it took me all that time to look at my baggage of enough and flip it. And I'm like, wow. So this book isn't Unapologetically Enough is the story of how I honestly reshaped success and self-love, came out of burnout, healed my body from failed IVF experiences. But really, it's my journey of healing the concept of enough. And it took naming it this for me to honestly be able to do that. And it's really, I mean, I'm so grateful. It's like one of my girlfriends who read it with me as I was writing it. She's like, it's really a love letter to you that you're sharing publicly. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a little freaky, but I guess so.
It is. It's incredibly vulnerable. I love that it takes this sort of memoir sort of stance or memoir view of burnout, whereas so many burnout books that are popular right now are very scientific, very like nuts and bolts. Here's what's happening in your brain. Here's what you need to do. Like, which has its place 100%, but so few people are being truly vulnerable about what put them there so that people can sort of, look in the mirror and see sort of the relationship between what they're reading and what they're experiencing. And also how it is that they came out of it, like very practically. Like you can tell me what I need, what hormone I need more of in my brain. Give me some give me some ideas to make it happen. But like, what does this actually look like in practice? So I love that it took this lens, but I also am loving what you're saying about this journey of healing your relationship with a concept with the concept of enough, because oftentimes conversations with bosses, it's funny, you brought up abundant. I know I've heard one boss in the crowd at least who gets so bent out of shape at the word abundant. I can't remember who it is, but I just said it like I've seen a boss's face just get mad when that word is brought up, or hustle, or whatever, or manage, or so many things. I think that's such an interesting practice for maybe everyone to think of, like, what is one word that just fires you up?
And like, why? And you got to do the work and figure it out and shift it. And for me, it was enough. I mean, like after burnout, I was, I didn't use the word. I would literally be asked to like come to corporations and like talk to managers about language they were using and how to change, vibrational. Don't use this word. It's low vibe. Instead, use this word. And enough was one of those words. I was like, instead of using enough, use the word welcome. But now I write it everywhere. I am enough. This is enough. And it's a constant for me. It's a constant practice of, honestly, it comes down to how I how I am unattaching other people's perceptions of who I am and what I'm doing and who I'm being, to staying totally focused and centered and 100% aligned with me. And it is a daily practice.
HubSpot's CRM platform can help you kickstart your sales process, increase your leads, and stay connected with customers. Plus, it will scale with your business, making HubSpot the perfect tool for any creative business owner. Hear it from a real boss using HubSpot to grow their business.
My name is Laura DeFranco. I'm the founder of Free Period Press, a Being Boss podcast fan and HubSpot CRM customer. It's really important to have a pulse on what's going on with our retail customers. I want to know how their customers are responding to our product, our prices, and what trends they're seeing in their shops. Even though we're working digitally, we're trying to keep our relationships as human as possible by developing real connections with store owners. We use HubSpot to track all of our wholesale accounts and prospects. We're honestly just scratching the surface in HubSpot's capabilities, but it's really nice to know that we're set up in a system that has the features we'll need as we grow. We track the contact information for all of our wholesale stockists and leads in HubSpot. There's so much data that we can add for each stockist, not just email and address, but any personal notes, the last time they ordered, or special requirements. When it's time to reach out to our accounts, we can filter so that we're sending more personalized messages to each store, and that is super helpful. My HubSpot CRM platform helps my business stay connected. Learn more about how it can do the same for yours at HubSpot.com.
Okay, you've talked a little bit about recovering from burnout. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear you. So you wrote a book. Mm-hmm. You got in there with your feelings and processed them and share them, which is one way of doing it. But what other things did you do to really help you get through burnout?
So for me, it really was reshaping the concept of success. So burnout, I chased money. I chased people's approval, which is 100% for me how I ended up in that dark space. When I looked at what does success look like, or how can I reshape success for me, I moved it out of alignment with money and alignment with validation, and I moved it over into feelings that let me be free. And so for me, the happy was my word. I wanted to be happy again. What made me happy? So once I got I wanted to be happy, success meant happy. What makes me happy? And I literally just would write down random stuff. And I made a commitment to myself that I was going to find what made me happy. And it was little things like taking 20 minutes to sit in a bathtub without my phone, or traveling, seeing friends. I didn't have any friends anymore. I was working around the clock. The last time I went on a date was, I hadn't been on a date in so long when I was in that space. So I wanted to do things that made me happy, and that I made a list and literally would start going down the list of things I could incorporate into my life that were easy at first, little tiny things. And I would take a moment to recognize the fact that in this moment, I am happy. And that little by little, it started to work. So at the time, Zumba was like all over the place. I would take go to, get a 2-week pass to a free gym or something. And I'd go to Zumba class until I could find the place that really fit my personality. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come here. This makes me happy. This place makes me happy. I found that thing. So for an hour, 5 days a week, I was happy when I was here. So that whole, what makes me happy, it took me probably, I'd say 6 to 9 months of doing that exercise every day, to get me in the space to finally breathe. And by that point, I was like, okay, I'm ready to do the thing. I'm ready to do the next thing. So, traveling, meeting friends was on my happy list, which is why I ended up in California and literally happened to be at a party with somebody at the Huffington Post at the time. And this is why how magic happens in my life. I made the commitment to find happy. I started doing new things for myself, putting myself first, traveling, just driving to California, sitting at a beach and at a random party. And then, happened to meet somebody there. And I was like, hey, I'm a recovered burnout. She's like, you should write that. And then I did. It got published and my next adventure started. So it is a long, winding road. But one of the things that really did help me was being open to the idea of letting the universe guide me instead of me guiding it. So in this concept of reshaping my concept of success, instead of chasing it, I let it come to me.
What some wonderful practical practices. This daily what makes me happy. And this isn't what, Cosmo tells you makes you happy, right? This is the weird little things in your life that just make you happy. That's a practice I can relate to very much so. And I even want to throw back, actually, I love the Zumba reference and how that really does date this situation. That made me sort of giggly. Just remember the age of Zumba, everybody?
Right. Yeah.
But what you were saying earlier about, oh man, where was I going? Zumba just interrupted my line of thought. Oh man, I can't remember. But
the little stuff.
The little things are really important. And you mentioned too that it took you 6 to 9 months to sort of get to a place where you could breathe, doing this practice. And this is one thing that I really want to highlight, because for me, it was 12 to 18. It took me a while to realize that there needed to be a happiness practice in place, right? Of the world's not just going to fix itself. I'm going to have to start figuring something else. This isn't just something that's going to lift one day, but actually have to do things. And then a happiness practice is something that I will still pull out. If I wake up on a Saturday and I'm just not feeling it, and I think we can all relate to just that.
Yeah.
What is one thing I can do today that will just make me happy? And it doesn't matter how weird or seemingly lame, or if it makes you happy, that's all that matters. And prioritizing that, it unlocks potential for magic to happen, for you to stumble into the person that you need, or to find the
exactly,
next piece of inspiration, or to just get a little bit of happiness to take you the next step.
Yep. So the 6 to 9 months was after I had spent a good 2 months literally just sort of crying and screaming and questioning, how did I get here? It was after I came back into my work and I was like, okay, I need some help. We have to do things differently. And then, what makes me happy? I wrote about that and got on stage and told that story of, I made a list of stuff that made me happy, and glitter was on the list. Roller coasters was on the list. Talks with girlfriends, because I hadn't made the time for that. So yeah, it was the little things like where it was like calling a friend, even texting a friend, responding to ones I haven't responded to in a year, reaching out, asking for, not just asking for help professionally and telling people about what I was doing, but letting people know how I was feeling. I totally cut that piece off. And I think a lot of times women running their own businesses feel like we did this thing. We went out into the world. We said we were going to do this and we've done it. We can't let anybody else know how it's actually going. And so we don't. We sit here in this silo and we just push forward and run as fast as we can, as hard as we can, for as long as we can, without ever stopping, because we don't want anyone to know we feel broken, unsuccessful, the flaws behind us as human beings. And that hurts my heart so much, knowing that so many, I mean, I was there. I know what that feels like. I know others do too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing that you hit on that is particularly important for bosses to hear is this idea of releasing control.
Totally. Absolutely.
Whenever it comes to healing from something like burnout, you have no control over it. Like
No.
you show up, you try, you do the things that make you happy. You continue to work towards your version of success. Like you do these things, but otherwise you do have to open yourself up to the sixth sense of humor of the universe.
Totally. I know. I love it. And when you are, when you're able to do that, which is hard, it was hard for me at first because it was counterproductive. It was counterintuitive. It was like, but if I stop, I won't get the thing, the contract won't come back, the money won't come in, all these things. Meanwhile, my soul over here, my heart is over here, like screaming. But if you don't stop, you're going to break.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. I finally surrendered. And I remember, so I was on USA Network. I was in this award ceremony called Characters Unite. And the people over at USA came to Phoenix, threw me this huge party on this rooftop. And I remember walking away from that event feeling like everything happens for a reason. I am incredibly grateful for this opportunity, but if I don't fix what feels broken inside, I won't get opportunities like this again. And so I did. I gave myself the space to sort of stop, heal. And I needed to heal so I wasn't resentful, because at that point I was like angry. And I was probably lashing out at everyone around me, but I was so unhealthy. I was so unhappy. And yet I was on the rooftop of this hotel, a major opportunity, and I didn't feel satisfied. So I was like, okay, well, this has to change.
That's your moment, right? That's your moment of recognition that something has to change. Then let's transition this a little bit and talk about the success piece. Because that's something that's come up many times. It's something we've talked about here, but I always love hearing sort of different perspectives of how this has affected you and how it is that you've transitioned, and really like how it is that you work out and encourage people to find their own version of success. Mm-hmm. So what words of advice do you have for anyone who may be listening who either may not be finding success as quickly as they want to, or are simply going after someone else's version of success?
Right. So this is the hardest one for me to talk about, because I do feel, I remember what that felt like, of like constantly comparing myself to what other women were doing and what they were showing as a result of what they were doing. And so I tried all these things. So the first thing for me, the concept of success was, it moved out from validation and money specifically. And validation came when I would do something, I would tell a peer and I didn't get what I wanted back. And so I would move over here and I would try my friends or family. I would even try my love life, didn't get it. So unhooking myself from that definition of success meant that I was getting recognition, I was getting validation, and I was getting money, to actual feelings, not external circumstances, but feelings. I am successful this morning because I spent 5 minutes to show myself gratitude just by smiling at myself in the mirror, taking a longer shower and dancing. So for me, the success really went from outside circumstances, outside validation, to how I was taking care of myself. That was how I started. When it came to my career, my job, and what I was doing in the world, success started, I pulled it out of that validation external thing and had to do it very small. So I was successful yesterday because I offered my services to 30 people. I can't control what anyone's going to say and what they're going to come back to me with, but at least I put effort into this. That had to be successful for me. My effort to support myself, not for anything else other than, as an entrepreneur, putting effort into what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's coming up for me is, comparing your 4 really great checks on your to-do list to someone else's 20. Like, screw their 20. Celebrate your 4. High five.
Right.
You did this today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comparison trap things in there, right? Of just like, what does this look like to you? What makes you feel good? And don't give a fuck
right
about what anyone else is doing. One of the things that I had to do as I was coming out of burnout was to really get off social media. Like, I had to just focus on me and myself and what made me feel good, and otherwise adopting a hardcore gratitude practice so that I could remember the ways in my life that I was already like totally successful, right?
Yeah.
Like, I had achieved, one of the things for me has always been being able to get up on my own time in the morning and have breakfast with my family. Like, I don't have to get up and commute an hour and a half to work. I don't have to do all of those things. I've built a life for myself where I can get up without an alarm clock and I can have a leisurely, chill breakfast with my family. And that's like, does that make me money? Not at all.
Right.
Does that give me any clout or like get me published in something cool? No. But like, I don't want any of that if I can just have this every day. And so I find that a really good gratitude practice, and you can even do it through the lens of like, in what ways in my life am I already successful? Oftentimes will give you the nuggets of the things that you can move towards, right? To define success for yourself. As bosses, we know the importance of testimonials, right? It's what helps your customers decide to buy you over your competition, and I know it helps you discern where to put your money too. So when it comes to deciding what move to make and how you manage the money side of your business, let me just say that FreshBooks, the easy-to-use accounting software designed specifically with small businesses in mind, has had over 24 million users, has 4.5 out of 5 stars on GetApp, and has been a favorite tool for bosses for over 7 years. Which means something very important. Small business owners like you really love using it, and it might be just the solution you're looking for to invoice your customers, track your expenses, and manage your books. Try FreshBooks free for 30 days, no credit card required. Go to freshbooks.com/beingboss to get started today.
Yeah. So for me, it really came down to, so being an empath, I have lots of feelings. For me, it came down to feeling successful meant I was happy in whatever I was doing. If I was happy in this moment, I was like, I feel successful. I feel grateful. Yeah. Grateful was another one for me. But yeah. So when I chased money, when I chased somebody else's approval, I always felt depleted. I felt this void. Sometimes I was lonely. I remember some of the biggest moments I had in my career. I had them. And then you come back to this house. I was single. I came back to an empty house at the end of the night of like something really big. I'm like, it shouldn't be this way, right? I shouldn't feel weird after having this huge high and all of a sudden this major crash. And so I was like, I want to sort of ride this equilibrium of being just happy without the roller coaster. And so redefining success for me really meant that no matter what I was doing, if I was happy in it, I was successful.
Yeah.
But I do remember in the beginning of whatever business I was running, having a hard time not moving forward, not doing all these things. So when it came to my career, I like reaching out to people. I like helping people tell their stories. I like talking to people. And even now with this book, I'll sit on a Sunday afternoon and research 25 or 30 bloggers that are putting cool, reviews out in the world for nonfiction pieces, and I'll reach out to them. And that's fun for me. I'm happy doing that. That's not something I'm being forced to do. I'm not. Yeah. So it's a harder for me. Redefining success was, it was a harder thing for me to do because of all of the preconceived notions I had for so long, and all the programs, and all the things that were taught, and all the hustle, and all of these things that are constantly being told to us that as a woman, as an entrepreneur, if you're a boss, you have to do it hard. You have to do it fast. You have to do it constantly. You have to make a ton of money. It was harder. That success one was harder for me to flip.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because yes, I think there's tons of reprogramming that we have to do and unlearning that we have to do, especially as entrepreneurs, because we are going outside the box to do something that most people haven't done before, at least not in the way that we've done it. So we have a lot of that to do to even get to a place where we can even tap into what it is how it is that we define success. But as you're saying that, I'm also sort of recognizing that the flip side of this is also true, and that we also have more opportunities to define success for ourselves because we are entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Right? Of like, if you have a day job, maybe you're relatively limited in the number of ways that you can define success for yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find a job that has the benefits that you want, that's going to give you retirement at the age that you want, that's going to afford you the ability to own the boat that you want, or whatever it may be, right? But you, in doing that, oftentimes what you're giving up is what the day-to-day work looks like. Right? Or who your boss is, or who it is that you are bossing around, or whatever it may be. So the day-to-day can be a little less dreamy, can be a little less sort of directly associated with your feelings for success. But you have to define it in sort of other ways. But for entrepreneurs, for business owners like us, we have opportunities to define success for ourselves in how it is that we show up every morning to the job that we're creating for ourselves, right? For the tasks that we do every day, for the people we want to hire, for the vendors we want to work with, for the kinds of, PR that we want, or whatever it may be. And I think most of that's kind of, fluffy success metrics.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have so many more opportunities to define success for our ways and out of the box ways, that once we do the hard work of unlearning, we are more set up for defining success in really cool ways.
Yeah.
Really cool ways.
I love that. When I wrote, so my journey is like, once I moved through burnout and I started to redefine and, move out of the nonprofit into my storytelling career, I decided I was ready to go back to dating. And so I started saying yes to dinner parties, which led to women asking me if I was single. It was a beautiful journey. I did all the dating apps. I went on a lot of bad dates. And I put a lot of love into my life, starting with self-love and self-care. And when I ended up meeting the man I'm married to now, and my original book didn't include him. And so my editor was like, you really need to, this isn't finished. You need to do it again. Go back to writing. he needs to show up in here somehow. So when I took several weeks by myself, and I wrote about him and me, and my theme song during that time was 9 to 5, because I was like, I want to tap into the energy of women who are doing all the things. They've, maybe they do have a 9 to 5 and they're married and they're running the house and they're being all these things and they're exhausted. And so on my way to the coffee, I would write from coffee shops. On my way to the coffee shop, I tuned in and I listened to Dolly over and over and over again until I got that vibe going. And, but yeah, I mean, you can be burned out as a 9 to 5er. You can be burned out as a mom. You can be burned out as an entrepreneur. COVID burnout. I mean, like, it's a real thing. It doesn't matter how you get there. The matter is putting practices in place for you to get out. That's really what it comes down to. You have to flip it, and you have to do the work to flip it. Have to.
The next place I want to take us is, you've mentioned a couple of times this idea of self-love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a part of the title of your book is, redefining success and self-love. So I'd love to know, like, how do you define self-love, and what does it look like? Like, what should the role be of self-love in your life and work?
Yep. So in the past, self-love always meant that I was pampering myself. I was spending a ton of money on myself. I was doing the thing because I deserved it. And this concept of deserve, I worked really hard. I deserved this extra glass of wine. I worked really hard. I deserved this extra cookie. Or when I would take breaks while I was in burnout, it wasn't just like a minute. It was like I took the whole day and I went to the spa. And
I'm laughing because I relate. I relate.
I indulged. And that's how it was for me. I was like, you know what? That's an expensive thing. I can't do that all the time. I have to break this down, and I have to pull this in that I'm doing not just every once in a while, daily, a lot during the day. How can I show myself self-love today? So I started to redefine. It wasn't something I earned. It was something I am. I am loved all the time. I love myself all the time. And so I was smiling during this interview, having the book that got me this interview sitting on the desk next to me. Making sure I have water. Those are the things that I've done in this interview to show myself I love myself. And so that it really went from, again, external validation, something I deserved, to something I am.
I feel like so many times in this chat, you have brought up the concepts of self-awareness.
Yes.
And just being very present.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Those, and it's, as I say them, I also recognize those as two things that also help pull me out of burnout. Right.
Yeah.
And just generally are characteristics that, I can pinpoint any boss that I know. They are incredibly self-aware. They know what they need. Right. And can prioritize that for themselves. And they are present to know that, self-love right now does not necessarily mean another taco, right? It could just mean another glass of water.
Right. I know. Yeah, totally. And
or whatever it may be.
It totally changes from moment to moment. After I changed my careers and I closed the nonprofit and I moved into my storytelling career, I went back to my roots of storytelling is what I say. I started dating again, and I was on this really bad date, and this guy's like, I was 37 at the time. I'm not anymore. I'm in my 40s. I was 37 at the time, and he was like, hey, it's too late. You missed your chance to get married and have kids. And I wrote about that too. It propelled me to put myself through 2 rounds of IVF. Both of them failed. And my body shut down. I was like bedridden, super, super, super sick. And so I went back to, it was a different kind of burnout. I was truthfully, physically unable to move a lot of the time. And so I had nothing to do but think. I would take naps. I would cuddle underneath the covers, and self-love went from somebody pampering me and taking care of me to giving myself permission to rest. And I felt sexy doing it. I felt like it was this luxurious thing. I was resting, and that was sexy. It was crazy to go from this rat race to being at peace and literally loving myself from head to toe. I would picture like every cell in my body being like massaged. And yeah, it was a different, it definitely flipped to I am loved right now in this being. I don't have to get permission from anyone else to do this. I'm doing this right now.
Yeah. Oh, sounds kind of trippy. I like it. I also want to pinpoint this idea of permission to rest. And how luxurious that feels. Because
Yes.
I recently did an episode on rest and how I still see bosses struggling with it. And we always will. I do think that as people start crawling themselves out of this like collective burnout that they're experiencing, that it may be easier for people to for a lot of people to prioritize it for themselves. But I relate to that 100%. I would rather take a nap than buy a pair of shoes most days.
Yeah. Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there is nothing more pampering than claiming some time for yourself and doing whatever you want, especially if that whatever you want is take a nap or to just lay there and read a book. And
I know.
And it's a practice that I have very much so found some joy in over the past couple of years. Even Sunday morning, one of those mornings this past weekend, I was in bed until noon and I slept all morning, and it felt like the most boss thing I had done in months.
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah.
Right?
It's so important. And the struggle I see a lot, the boundary for me, again, is in this unhooking of your perception of what I have to do and who I have to be is not mine. And if I need to sit here and sit in meditation, like the other day, I took I was in like an 85-minute meditation, whatever. And I've done it like 2 or 3 times and I absolutely love it. And I could hear people walking by in the hallway and the door was locked, and I could have easily gotten up and dealt with it, but instead I put my earbuds in and I was like, no, this is my moment. I need this. I'm going to take this. This is it. Yeah. And so it changes. Again, it's a daily practice, reshaping success and self-love, but entrepreneurs definitely need both those things constantly. Taking the time. Yeah.
Indeed. Perfect. My sort of lastest question for you is around the vulnerability of writing a book like this.
Crazy.
Right? How are you feeling now that this book is not out quite yet, very soon?
No, May 24th.
May 24th. But as I was reading through this, it's just like one of the most vulnerable accounts of burnout I have read. Incredibly engaging. But as I was reading it too, I was like, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it. How are you feeling about it? And what got you into a space to think that, or to feel as if this is how you wanted to share this journey?
I am excited and freaking out at the same time. I will, like this morning I got we knew this was happening and suddenly my brain went blank and I called my coach and I was like, I don't know what the F I'm going to do. What if I can't speak? And she's like, you're talking about your life. It will be there. And so I feel like I'm under a shower of confetti and yet at the same time know very well I'm effing naked. And so it's very weird. It is incredibly weird. But when it comes to writing this vulnerable, I don't know how else to do it. I knew this book was calling me. I knew I had to get this out. I'm a writer. I believe very strongly that I went through these pieces of life so that I could put this out to the world. And I don't know how else to do it than as raw as it is. And I mean, there's chapters in here. Like I said, I'm still shocked, made it. There's things in here about my experience. I'm praying people are sensitive to, because like, if you don't like this and you come back and you're like, yeah. So there's a lot going on in my head. So talking about redefining and reshaping success and self-love right now is like huge because I'm constantly unhooking other people's validations, external circumstances, however this lands is how it's going to land. My success right now is I did this. I put this out to the world. It is an actual book. I spent 8 years working on it and I birthed this. It feels really good.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
wonderful.
God,
I
crazy.
think it's going to be great. And honestly, as I mentioned before, I think a book about burnout that's in this way or in this sort of form is going to be so much more relatable and human than all of the, brain science books out there. And they both have their place. I'm not poo-pooing on the brain science books literally at all, but this is a different take. And I think one that's going to be so much more relatable, especially to our crowd. I'm glad that you did it in this way.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Will you tell everyone where it is they can find you and this book?
Sure. So the book is called Unapologetically Enough, Reshaping Success and Self-Love. You can come over to unapologeticallyenough.com, send me a note. There's plenty of places you can find the book. The book is out May 24th. It's available anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Bookshop, Target, Walmart. Just head to whatever website you love. Grab it, but please let me know what you think. I would absolutely love to hear from you.
Perfect, Carrie. This has been a treat. I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's making you feel most boss?
Oh my goodness. Right now, this interview.
Nice. You spoke great.
Yeah. Honestly, what's making me feel most boss is that I'm owning this. I'm owning this book.
Yeah.
I'm owning the story and I'm telling people about it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful book, baby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. This has been a great chat.
Absolutely. My treat.
All right, boss, because you're here, I know you want to be a better creative business owner, which means I've got something for you. Each week, the team at Being Boss is scouring the news, the best entrepreneurial publications, and updates and releases of the apps and tools that run our businesses, and is curating it all into a weekly email that delivers the must-know tips and tactics in the realms of mindset, money, and productivity. This email is called Brewed. We brew it up for you each week to give you the insight you need to make decisions and move forward in your creative business. Check it out now and sign up for yourself at beingboss.club/brewed. That's beingboss.club/BREWED. Now, until next time, do the work, be boss.
Yeah.